Welcome back, everyone. It's Charlie. This will be my full Game of Thrones Night of the Seven Kingdoms Episode 4 video. There are a whole bunch of Easter eggs, references to the books, WTF moments, so we'll break it all down. Everybody grab your swords and lances. Duncan's putting together a team. He needs 6 other knights to help him. What a coincidence if some of the best tournament fighters in the realm and most powerful people politically also just happen to wind up on his team. Obviously, the real big twist here is Baelor joining his team at the end of the episode. Really love seeing that because he clearly hated Aerion during last week's episode. But in doing so, in joining his team and in Aerion's selection, now the 7 vs 7 has turned into another mini Targaryen civil war right after the Blackfyre Rebellion and the Dance of the Dragons during House of the Dragon. No big deal though, I'm sure their father, King Daeron II, won't be mad that the Targaryen family is fighting each other to the death in open combat again. The episode title is 7, which is a reference to the Trial of 7, which is the titular thing of this entire story that George R. Martin wrote in A Hedge Knight, the first book in the Tales of Duncan Egg. The Trial of 7 is a specialized form of trial by combat that was brought over with the Andal invasion when they brought the tradition of knighthood to Westeros in the first place. Traditional knights in the order of knighthood didn't exist before the Andal invasion, so when you hear stories about tales of knights from the Age of Heroes, they're likely embellished. As Baelor told Dunk, the tale grows with the telling over the eras. Trial of 7 is linked specifically to the faith of the Seven and the Andal tradition, their religion. The Andals believed that as 7 champions fought on each side, the gods thus honored would be more likely to see justice done. But like I've said before, I think the idea is they really just like the idea of 7 versus 7 more than 1 versus 1. Like, it just made for a more entertaining actual match to watch. During traditional trial by combat, the stakes are a little bit different. You can choose champions to fight for you. You don't have to personally fight in the match. Trial by 7 is different in that you do have to fight on your team of 7, defending or attacking, depending on if you're the accuser or the accused. And the accused, Dunk in this case, is declared innocent if the accuser, Aerion in this case, or accusers, are either defeated or yield, and defeated as in killed. That's what they mean when they say defeated. If the accused is slain, it is believed the gods have judged him guilty and the trial by 7 ends. If the accused cannot find 6 men to stand with him, if you can't find 6 people to fight with you, he is declared guilty as well too, and you are killed. So a really big part of the episode is Egg helping Dunk find the other 6 people for his team. This is also the main reason why Aerion chose to turn the trial by combat, which Dunk was going to go for, because that was going to be his way out, into a trial of 7, because Aerion doesn't believe that Dunk will be able to find 6 people to fight for him, and he also wants to find a way to weasel out of having to face Dunk in actual combat, because in a physical match, Dunk's great advantage is his size and strength. He overpowers pretty much everybody else at the tournament, even though he's not that great of a fighter. So in a traditional trial by combat, Aerion would have had absolutely no choice, but this, he thinks, is his way of winning. And even though Dunk has started making friends and allies at the tournament in the couple of days that we've been here, remember, it's only been a couple of days that they've been at the tournament so far. One of the main reasons why Lyonel Baratheon chooses to be on his team, in addition to being Dunk's friend, he's also extremely excited about, 1, the idea of fighting in a trial of 7, because there hasn't been one in hundreds of years. The last trial of 7 was actually fought by Maekar the Cruel during his time when he was challenged by the Faith. And even though he did wind up winning that trial of 7, he was the last man standing, and he was in a coma for a couple weeks. That's how hard up he was, how much damage it did to him. And we'll talk about this as we go through the episode too, but the other big reason that Lyonel Baratheon chooses to be on his team in particular is because he loves the idea of sticking it to the Targaryen family, because he believes they need to be taken down a peg.
I wasn't about to miss a chance to bloody up the King's Guard in their pretty white gowns.
You kind of see in the first couple of episodes, especially with what Aerion did and the way the small folk reacted to him killing the horse and acting dishonorably in last week's episode, that right now the realm doesn't really like the Targaryens that much because it drugged the realm through 2 different civil wars of their own. This was also why Raymond Fossaway had all that Targaryen slander in last week's episode too. He talked about the different wars that the Targaryen family drugged the realm into that they didn't want to be part of. He was talking specifically about the Dance of the Dragons, which we're watching on House of the Dragon, and we'll see in Season 3 right now, with a couple really big battles going down, and then the Blackfyre Rebellion, which you started to get flashbacks for and a lot of Easter eggs for in the first couple of episodes of this series. We'll get more Blackfyre Rebellion flashbacks too. But a really big part of the episode is Dunk finding those other people and showing the different reasons for all of them wanting to be on his team. The opening scene starts with Dunk in the cells right after he's been arrested for striking Aerion. The way he looks up at the roof, the confined area at the grate, is meant to remind him of what it was like trying to survive when he was growing up as a young boy in Flea Bottom and King's Landing. This will be part of some flashbacks that we'll see in next week's episode, where he's doing some similar things. Egg comes in wearing traditional Targaryen colors, now red and black, because his father Maekar is back and is making him dress up like a member of the royal family traditionally would. Baelor, being one of the few people that actually understands the truth of the matter, makes Egg beg for forgiveness for deceiving Dunk, playing him for the fool. Dunk also jokes about how many Aegons there have been in the past. When he says 4 Aegons, there have actually been more Aegons in the family, but only 4 of them were kings before this. So technically this makes young Egg Aegon the 5th, which the fortune teller revealed to him that he would be king someday, so he will be Aegon the 5th. Jon Snow, for example, if he had sat the Iron Throne, actually been crowned king, he would have been Aegon the 6th. He explains to Dunk why he lied in the first place and how he came to be at the inn in Daeron's plan to skip the tournament. The whole idea is that Maekar was ordered to the tournament with him and Baelor, their families, and Maekar ordered Daeron to compete in the tournament as part of the family. Daeron obviously wanted nothing to do with that, so he said that he and Egg were going to hide out at the inn nearby the tournament until the tournament was over, until Egg happened upon Dunk, like they just happened to meet each other, and Egg actually really did want to go to the tournament, really does want to be a squire and become a knight someday. So part of the idea is that Egg just saw this as an opportunity, and because he's still a little kid, like he's very precocious, he's very highly learned for a little kid, but at heart he's still a little kid, so he didn't think that he was doing any harm, even though Baelor tells him you don't necessarily need to mean to do harm in order to actually do harm. When he takes him to meet with Baelor, this is Lord Ashford's office. Basically, the Targaryens have taken over Lord Ashford's castle while they're at the tournament, like they're all staying inside the actual castle itself. Baelor explains the truth of the matter, and even though he understands what's really going on here and wants to help Dunk, the deck has been stacked against him, and he is actually held to the letter of the law. Even though Baelor is the hand of the king and the heir presumptive, the most powerful you can get in Westeros besides being the actual king sitting on the Iron Throne. Because the accusing party is Aerion, his blood, also part of the royal family, he can't bend the rules in Dunk's favor. Dunk's only option here to survive is trial by combat. When he explains to Dunk, typically the other option is to get the offending body part that you struck the royal family member with cut off. He struck him with his hand and his foot, meaning that he would lose 2 of his limbs, and his dream of becoming a knight would be dead. Then there are a couple really important moments here that sort of set up the idea of why he might actually choose Dunk's side, because he believes him to be the right party in all this, the just party. First, he tells Egg that Egg should have come to him to stop Aerion instead of Dunk, another example of him not liking Aerion. Like, he definitely would have struck Aerion, but because he's more powerful and also part of the family, so he wouldn't have gotten in trouble the same way that Dunk did.
Would you not have done the same?
I might have.
Just another reminder that he absolutely hates Aerion, can't stand him, even though he's a member of his family. Then when Egg says that he had wished that Dunk had killed Aerion, and Baelor gets a little upset for a second, saying the Septons say we must love our brothers, is both a callback to the Blackfyre rebellion and what happened with all the consequences of that, as well as the dance of the dragons in the Targaryen civil wars that basically have wrecked the realm over the past 100 years or so. But it's also meant to foreshadow the Baelor versus Maekar fight that's now coming in the Trial of Seven, because they're on opposing teams. We also find out that Daeron lied to Maekar when Maekar found him drunk at the inn, saying that Dunk was a robber that yoinked Egg to avoid Maekar beating him even worse. He does imply that Maekar beat him when he found him. And even though Baelor understands that this isn't true, Maekar believes it's true, just makes him hate Dunk even more now. So remember the bad start they got off to in earlier episodes when he first met Maekar and tried to wish him that his sons would not be dead? Like, hopefully they won't be found dead in a ditch somewhere. More and more examples of him just getting on Maekar's bad side, even though technically Maekar during this has way more sense than he actually does in the book version of this. There are a couple changes, a couple lines from Maekar that they give to Aerion to make Aerion seem worse and Maekar seem a little more reasonable. Baelor also seems mad that Aerion is probably going to have Tanzelle killed for high treason, thinking that her play is treason because the dragon is the sigil of the Targaryens, and even though during peacetime she wasn't meaning to do harm, it wasn't a very smart move, it wasn't a good look to do in front of other Targaryens. This is also why Tanzelle took off to go back to Dorne. Later in the episode we find, like, she left the shield with Steely Pate and then went back to Dorne because she is from Dorne originally. Time to take off before Aerion has time to actually draw you up on charges and come for you. Then this moment where Dunk challenges Baelor, saying that all knights make the same oath is the idea that in the eyes of the Seven, all knights are meant to be equal to defend the innocent and held to the same standard, which Baelor also believes in, the true tenets of being a knight. He's actually meant to be a very good person, a just person, which is why he would potentially make a very great king someday that everyone's really excited about. But this is Dunk planting the seeds in Baelor to him joining his team being the right thing to do. So I think had Dunk not challenged him in this way, he might not have actually chose to fight for him ultimately. There's a little time jump and they hold him on trial. It's Baelor, Maekar, Aerion, Leo Longhorn Tyrell, who remember didn't remember Lord Ashford and is not sympathetic to Dunk, and obviously Lord Ashford himself. You also notice there are several times here where Aerion tries to weasel out of the match. He doesn't want to fight Dunk. First, he tries to decline the trial by combat, and I love the way that Maekar gets so pissed off at him. Calls him out in front of everyone else for being a coward, trying to avoid having to face Dunk in combat. Then his backup plan is to try and call for a trial of 7 as another way out of trying to fight Dunk, because he doesn't believe that Dunk will find 6 other people to fight for him, so he won't actually have to fight in the first place. Then one of the changes they make from the book version of this is in the book version, Maekar is way madder at Dunk, and a lot of the lines that Aerion has originally were Maekar's in the books, like, if a cause is just, good men will fight for it, and if you don't, it's because you're guilty. I think part of the idea is that they're trying to set up some of Maekar's future arc and why he would actually lean a little bit more on Dunk later in the series. During the books, they just made it seem like Maekar had it out for Dunk way more. They release Dunk so that he can go find the other 6 knights that he needs, the other 6 champions, goes back to camp to see his horses, and Raymond Fossaway, who's like the first friend that he actually made at the tournament, is the first to actually try and help him. Then they really play up this whole Stefan Fossaway moment here, who declares for him as the first person on his team. It makes it sound like House Fossaway really does hate the Targaryens, but all the speaking of honor and glory friends is meant to set up his backstabbing to make it seem like an even bigger twist later when he switches to Aerion's team in exchange for Aerion making him a true lord.
I know great men who have traded their honor for far less.
But you also wonder, because he does say that he mentions a couple of his friends that could help out, and Lionel Baratheon is one of the first ones, but later the next day, when Dunk meets Lionel Baratheon says that he's never met Stefan before. So I think the idea here is that Stefan Fossaway was actually putting on an act the whole time for Dunk, and Aerion had already gotten to him before Dunk meets with him and he declares for Dunk. So this whole speech about him going to his friends to find other people to fight on Dunk's team was all a lie the entire time. He also mentions House Lannister. Otho that he mentions is Otho Bracken, the one who farts at Dunk later when Dunk is calling out the crowd for having 0 honor. So the other idea here too is that all of Stefan Fossaway's friends are terrible as well. The only exception is Lionel Baratheon, who says that he wasn't his friend. Like, I have no idea who that is, so he was just kind of making that name up. Egg then arrives with his older brother Daeron the Drunken, who says that Maekar, their father, beat him when he found him drunk at the end, apologizes to Dunk for lying about him, declares that he'll fight on Dunk's team of 7, but it won't be that good. Like, please end the fight quickly, because I will only last for like a single charge. Egg then tells him that Maekar is also making the 3 Kingsguard who are here at the tournament fight on Aerion's team. Tells the story about how Aerion would abuse him when he was younger, that's also right out of the book too, and killed his cat, which is just the marker of a real monster, how they treat animals just in general. So remember the care that Egg and Dunk showed to the horses, the same way that Jon Snow has this really close relationship with Ghost. Very easy way to show you what a good person someone is if they really care for animals. There are also a couple other big book Easter eggs that Egg has about Aerion just in general. When he says he thinks of himself as an actual dragon, that's also right out of the books. It's also why he literally has armor that makes him look kind of like a dragon, and he dresses his horse up like a dragon too. Aerion is also the Targaryen who infamously drank wildfire because he thought that he was a dragon. Daeron then explains his dragon dreams of Dunk in the fact that his dreams come true are dragon dreams. He's basically just like Helaena. Not everybody in the Targaryen family gets dragon dreams of Valyrian descent. It's usually pretty rare within the family. That doesn't make them greenseers though. When you see Helaena showing up in other people's dreams in House of the Dragon, that's sort of them bending the rules about the way some of those powers work. Brynden Rivers, the Blood Raven, aka the Three-Eyed Raven, is alive and well during this part of the timeline. He hasn't become the Three-Eyed Raven yet, and he hasn't even become the Hand of the King yet either, but he was very active during the Blackfyre Rebellion. Like, he's very active during this part of the timeline. He's meant to be one of the few exceptions. He also has dragon dreams, but he also is a greenseer like Bran, which is also even more rare. There's a pretty good chance that we'll see Bloodraven cameo in one of the future seasons of the show. He doesn't appear during this season because he isn't part of a Hedge Knight story. Like George R. R. Martin didn't write him into this particular story that they're adapting for season 1. When Daeron describes his actual dragon dream of Dunk, the fire, the dead dragon with wings so large it covered the field on top of him, but it was the dragon that was dead and Dunk was alive, is meant to be a direct reference to the Trial of Seven and what winds up happening with that. Because remember, he tells Dunk, my dreams come true, meaning that what he saw will come true. We can't really get more specific about what this dream means without getting into spoilers for what happens during the Trial of Seven. There are a couple big WTF twists. We will just wait till those episodes happen. We don't have to wait that long for it to actually play out. We will get the Trial of Seven in next week's episode. That really big twist that Daeron just dropped on him, the dragon dead on top of him, is also a reference probably to the way they end episode 5. Daeron then references the hell of the Game of Thrones universe. It gets 2 shoutouts. Hell gets 2 shoutouts during this episode. I think this is one of the first times that it's been referenced, but they probably reference at least once or twice during the original Game of Thrones series. Maybe at some point George R. R. Martin will go deeper into some of the different religions on Game of Thrones, but mostly here we're talking about the Faith of the Seven in terms of religion. Dunk then remembers Tanzel's play from the previous day of Florian the Fool, and Florian the Fool is meant to be a comp for him and his relationship with Tanzel.
You are Florian the Fool.
Florian was a legendary hero from the Riverlands during the Age of Heroes and is known for falling in love with a maiden named Yonquil, who was meant to be Tanzel, like that's who she's dressed up as during the actual play. Steely Pate then comes to give him his shield that Tanzel finished painting before she left to go back to Dorne. That's where she's from. The next book in the series actually takes place in Dorne, so maybe we'll see Dunk and Egg reunited with Tanzel at some point in the next story if they want to include her. George R. R. Martin said that he would also do more story for Tanzel in the future too. She's not a real big part of the next 2 books that they'll be adapting for season 2 and season 3, but they've changed some stuff already for season 1 from the Hedge Knight book 1 of Tales of Duncan, so the show might bring Tanzel back in season 2 and season 3 in some way, and some change to the books. They use his new sigil on the shield as a metaphor for Dunk surviving the Trial of Seven. Oak and iron, God be well, or else I'm doomed to hell is also a prayer that's taken from the book too. Sells him the finished shield for a single copper because he's taking pity on him. Also, the work was relatively minor compared to making the actual armor itself, and he already largely paid for the armor. Really big shout out to selling Sweetfoot. Still thinking about you, Sweetfoot. Then the next morning, he arrives at the tourney field, and Lionel Baratheon, Humphrey Harding, Humphrey Beesbury, and Robin Riesling are there to fight on his team, all of them having different reasons for wanting to fight with him. I already talked about Lionel Baratheon and why he wants on the team. Humphrey Harding wants revenge for Aerion killing his horse and hurting his leg. Robin Riesling because he's a fanatic and believes the Targaryens have dishonored the gods. Maddest Knight in Westeros is going to fight on your team, and then obviously learns that Steffan Fossaway abandoned him and probably spent that entire night lying to him and had already declared for Aerion because Aerion offered him a lordship in exchange for fighting on his team. So part of the idea, I think, is that Aerion was trying to set up Dunk to fail so that he would show up on the tourney field with nobody fighting for him, but as Lionel Baratheon explains, it was actually Egg that came around and gathered all these people for Dunk, and Aerion wasn't betting on that. So the reason why any of these people are here at all is because of Egg. But the real big Steffan Fossaway betrayal here is also meant to set up the House Fossaway mini-civil war between Steffan and Raymond that leads to the Green Apple versus the Red Apple branches of the family. Then they throw a little more fire on the flames of the idea that Dunk might not have been knighted by Sir Arlen because he refuses to knight Raymond Fossaway, but also part of me thinks that they're giving themselves an out here where he's just reticent and doesn't want to get Raymond hurt, and that's why he won't knight him. So I don't think this is definitive proof one way or the other. Was he knighted or was he not knighted? But this leads to Lionel Baratheon being the one to knight him, which is the way it went down in the books. And he speaks the oath. It's the same oath that Jaime Lannister gave to Brienne when he knighted her during the original Game of Thrones series. In the name of the warrior, I charge you to be brave. In the name of the father, I charge you to be just. In the name of the mother, I charge you to defend the young and innocent. In the name of the maid, I charge you to protect all women. Dunk then sees the vision of Sir Arlen as if he's judging him from the Westeros version of heaven, the Faith of the Seven's version of heaven, and calls out the crowd as honorless because no one seems like they want to help him and join his cause as just. All of his speech here trying to remind them about Sir Arlen and what true honor means is basically the true ideals of knighthood and what it's supposed to represent, in that good is just and right in Westeros. Where usually in Westeros, in the world of Game of Thrones, you would expect rule of thumb is that being a good person will only get you killed, Ned Stark style, like people say that Ned Stark's honor got him killed. And it's usually only the bad people or the people who are willing to bend the rules or be morally gray who wind up surviving. Dunk as a character is meant to be the pushback from George R. R. Martin on that, like, no, good people still can survive and do well. But even though this leads to a very banger ending to the episode, there are still consequences. Like, it's not just that good will always win out and do right. There are consequences to being good and doing the right thing.
I will take the Duncan side.
Then as he finishes his speech asking for a true knight in Westeros to show themselves, Baelor rides in to the Game of Thrones theme song. They play it for real this time. They don't stop it short with anybody farting or doing anything weird. Really love the way the show leans into it being earnest. You also notice that he's wearing Valarr, his son's armor, because he didn't bring his armor to the tournament, which is why it doesn't fit completely perfectly for him. Like, Valarr isn't the exact same size, so he kind of squeezed himself into Valarr's armor. When Maekar rides up, his line here to him, "Have your senses taken leave," is also right out of the books too. And remember, Aerion's team here is his father Maekar, who also has sick-looking dragon armor, the three Kingsguard, Willem Wild, Donald of Duskendale, and Roland Crakehall, and Aerion's brother, Daeron the Drunken, and Stefan Fossaway. So the idea is that Maekar also makes Daeron the Drunken fight on Aerion's team because he's his brother. But the good news there is that we know that Daeron isn't a good knight or good at jousting or tournaments, so he is not going to be a big threat during this. Baelor, on the other hand, is sort of like a savant at tournaments, and he is one of the best jousters in the history of Westeros. So part of the idea here is that Dunk has a couple ringers on his team. Everybody post all your reactions in the comments below, and if you spotted any Easter eggs or references for the books that I didn't talk about during the video, just write them below in the comments. What I'll do is my episode 5 trailer video will post next, and then my full episode 5 video will post next Sunday on the normal schedule. It's going back to Sunday nights because it'll be the week after the Super Bowl, so be sure to enable alerts for my channel so you don't miss any of those. Cannot wait to see the actual Trial of 7 go down. Everybody click here for that episode 5 video. I'll update the link as soon as I post it, and click here for all my other Knight of the Seven Kingdoms episodes. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one.